Hi, welcome to episode 72 of Talk About the Passion, Came Without a Warning. I'm your host, Christian Campagna, and my guest today is Enoch Thompson, who you may know as Skeeter Thompson. Enoch has been playing bass for the band Scream for 40 years now, so that's what we talk about here. This episode was a little different than some of the other ones the one-on-one conversations with people where we start from the beginning and go from there. We start in 1981 when Scream start playing shows. And from there, it's tours with Government Issue, the Subhumans, and along the way forming this decades-long bond that is still there today. When I think of Scream and the bond I am talking about, it's between the core group, Enoch, Ken Stacks on drums, and Pete and Franz Stahl on vocals and guitar. I first saw Scream when I was 14 years old in 1984, and then a year or so later, they came through Boston with the Subhumans, and I interviewed Pete for my fanzine at the time. A couple years after that, I was fortunate enough to open for Scream and Kingface at TT the Bears in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And as my bandmate Al Quint told the story on his episode of this podcast, Pete approached Al before the show and asked how much we were getting paid. I think it was around $20, $25. After the show, Pete shoved a little extra money in Al's hand from their earnings and gave it to us. So that was a pretty selfless move I've always remembered. Now talking to Enoch here, it's obvious this group Scream are not just extremely talented musicians and songwriters, but great, humble, cool people. The reason I enjoy doing this podcast is to document stories that might otherwise go unnoticed, untold. Scream often get talked about because of a very small time frame of their existence. The whole story, though, is over 40 years and still going. Dozens of classic songs, stories, and memories that deserve to be talked about. Enoch is an extremely humble guy, and this was a really cool conversation with someone I've never met, but whose music has, been in my DNA forever. I want to thank Mary for helping to set this up for me. Her and Enoch were generous with their time, and I'm very grateful for that, so thank you. The sound for the first few minutes of this phone call is a little muffled, but works itself out. You can follow me on social media. I keep Facebook and Instagram current, and if you would like to be on the podcast or have someone in mind, please shoot me a message there. Just search Talk About the Passion podcast. Okay, let's get into this now. Episode 72. Here is Enoch Thompson. Thanks for listening. I am here on the phone with Enoch Thompson. You've been with Scream for 40 years now, correct?
Yeah, yes, sir. Goodness. 40 years, 80, 79, 89, 99, 2000. Oh, my God. 42 years.
42 years. Do you remember playing a Battle of the Bands in 1981?
Yeah, I do remember that. We did a couple. I think we actually ended up playing 2 shows. 2 Battle of the Bands. We made the first cut. Mm-hmm. And didn't make the second cut.
No. Damn. Shortly after that, you played with Minor Threat and the Bad Brains and started playing shows around D.C. with those kind of bands.
Punk rock bands?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. We started playing with, the core of the Discord. It was crazy, too, because we were, also playing, house parties.
Right.
So, and it was sort of really strange because most house parties would have cover bands playing, anything from Golden Earring, Pat Travers, boom, boom, that goes like. But we would, manage to throw together parties and with more of a new wavy type. I think the B-52s are big and bands like that and Devo. Mm-hmm. But, we weren't hardcore at that point. We were just a garage band. We hadn't put a lot of speed to it when we first started. During the time when we tried out for the Battle of Bands in Louis Rock City, which is like a huge rock club.
Right.
But we slowly got, like you said, we started to play around D.C. area with other new wave or punk acts, and slowly,
Yeah.
I guess acquired our own style of hardcore.
Right. Yeah, you when you listen to the first record, there's so much going on compared to, all the stuff before that on Discord was amazing. But you guys kind of knocked it to a different level, and I think it was the musicianship and just some of the influences that you could hear on that were so much different than just sort of straight punk. So it was refreshing. So did you guys all have pretty big musical tastes at that point, that early on?
Oh yeah, we all came from a different musical background. I believe, Pete and Franz, their dad managed a psychedelic band in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a band called the Hangmen.
Okay.
And so they got exposure of that sort of the whole. And DC had a huge music scene. Unbeknownst to me, those guys grew up in from the time they were 5 and 7 and 5. I guess. Well, Pete was probably 8, but they, and so it was the psychedelic sort of rock folk
right
thing going on with them, and then Kent Stacks was into UFO, and so was Franz. I'm sure of course Franz and Pete, but Kent was really in the straight rock and roll, the garage at the time,
mm-hmm.
UFO and Scorpions.
Oh, okay.
Bands like that, metal, Judas Priest, and
right.
Zeppelin, of course, and I grew up listening to a lot of soul and Rufus. What's that guy's name? Rufus Thomas.
Oh, yeah.
I remember Funky Chicken and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that was my first experience of music. And rock and roll was first song I remember, the song Sunshine who's that by Don McLean? Is that Don McLean too?
Don McLean.
Sunshine go. No. It's Sunshine go away today. Don't feel much like singing. Some man's gone, he's trying to run my life. You don't know what he's singing. How much does it cost? I'll buy you. The time is always on. I'll try it. He can't even run his own life. I'll be damned if he run mine. So that was my first real, of white people music, I guess.
Right.
It was and I was yeah, this is pretty deep.
Yeah.
I loved it because it said, I'll be damned if you run mine. I like the cussing in it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
I was only 7, 8, But I slowly started getting folk music and then, it's about the same time. It was kind of crazy. Maybe, it was about probably 70, the soul singers were starting to, I'd start to hear more soul singers doing Beatles stuff,
Right.
So I slowly started to intertwine, and so the music, in my family, even I think Kent's family, they have musical, people who are musically inclined,
right?
And same thing in Pete's family, but in my family it wasn't really so much like that. They were, mainly hustlers and, just hardworking people.
Right.
Very few. I think I had a distant cousin named Chummy. He played blues, and I think he played harp.
Nice.
And slide guitar, but only saw him at just at house parties. Not see him, but I see him all the time. But I only saw him perform or pick up his guitar.
Right.
It was late at night, I'd just get a glimpse of it as I was getting put to bed.
Yeah. Where would you hear music? Did you buy records as a young kid? Did you start buying records?
Well, my mom listened to like Elmore James and, Tony Will Williams and stuff like that. So my mom and all her friends, and my mom would constantly have, like, she was like the matriarch, I guess, of the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Even when she was younger, she was helping a lot of the other single moms, and they all like grouped together, but they all loved music. They all listened to like Staple Singers, Stax Records, Muscle Shoals, stuff like that. So that's the kind of, Aretha Franklin, stuff like that I grew up on.
Yeah.
And, from the time I can remember, when I first started like getting into music, I wanted to play drums.
Oh, yeah.
So
did you ever do?
Yeah, because I was all into James Brown and things like James Brown drummer was just
Clyde Stubblefield. I know. I was going to say, when I first started listening to Scream, I was 14 in the early '80s, and I knew the music was coming from somewhere else. But later on, as I got older, I remember discovering or just thinking the song "Hygiene," the bass line, and that is like "Can't Stand It," James Brown, like Fred, and having that with punk rock music, just that made you guys stand out. And
that's right, sort of where the bass line comes from.
Yeah,
I can't think. Can't stand it.
Yeah.
But we were like, and that's the thing. We would play around, like, with stuff. We would. A lot of times, you would just get it was way before any sort of like help. Even when it was, you'd get music books. It'd be like some terrible chart.
Right.
You couldn't figure it out. It wouldn't be the real chord. It'd be an open chord, and you'd be trying to play like Whole Lot of Love, and they show you open D.
Right.
Open D to E. It's like, what? It didn't have the same feel or anything like that. So when you finally found it, you find bits and pieces of songs, so you just grab hold of it and just probably wear them out, So we would do that constantly. And we would find ourselves a lot of times like in a funk or genre or like even though we're playing power, like like some weird like Jeff Beck from Wired, Lead Boots, bit of the band, and we find out we just have one part of it.
Yeah.
But when we get to the change, it'd be like an elaborate change. No, we're not doing that. So we end up doing bits and pieces like so many songs, and it slowly, evolved into, we throw them in our own music, I think, and bit, slowly but surely.
Yeah.
We definitely, like you said, it was definitely different. We definitely were influenced by the bands in DC also.
Right.
We definitely, as far as speed and aggression and attitude and, and after we were accepted into the scene, how we like bonded with everybody, but we definitely had a different approach. I think, the thing that really I noticed right away that we practiced a lot, and we tried to actually make it like, we sort of got lost in our own little fantasy world, because we all had 9 to 5s, and we have our 9 to 5s, and we come home from work, and we pretty much go, straight from work, eat, and go straight to rehearse, and and we took it pretty, we would practice 4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah. Well, you can tell. Definitely.
So
it's a tight band.
Yeah, it was kind of weird too, because we thought, we knew that we had something special because of how many great bands were getting together and were making great music, but they couldn't stay together.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that you sort of, after a while, I guess we sort of took it for granted just because we were just so close and intertwined in such a way.
Right.
Like family that you know.
Yeah. And you guys.
Like when you said 40 years, I was like, God, that's right. Yeah.
I know, right?
I've been on for like 40-something years, God.
I know. I'm trying to think of many other bands from this scene that have endured that long, and I don't think I can think of many. Agnostic Front, maybe, or I don't even know. Yeah. So. I mean,
Agnostic. Those. It's like, God, I can't think of really any bands. It's like Agnostic has pretty much had the same band members, right?
Roger and Vinny have been there the whole time, but they've had a revolving cast of bass players and other guitar players. And
yes, I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, I love those guys as far as like people, but
yeah,
I must say that it's weird too, because like, you know, when you start doing the whole family thing and start living the life, you go like, you sort of, like you said, take for granted. That was not me. That was a cat. No. You take for granted a lot of those things. I forgot we were recorded. You sort of take for granted. Like another band, The Damned. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
I can't think of that. Like, even like when you think about the Ramones, you know, they were together for like eons, but.
Yeah.
You know, you can't think of that many bands. I guess I didn't think of it.
Yeah. The Bad Brains. I mean, they did it for quite a lot of time, quite a long time, with different lineups. But it was mostly HR. You know, most of the time they had a couple different singers, but
yeah, it's weird because it's been Bad Brains with different singers, different drummers.
Yeah, Mackie and Earl.
Yeah. But they're all great players, and
yeah. You did you guys toured pretty early on with Government Issue?
Yeah, our first like U.S. tour, I think was like in '81.
Okay.
And we went. It was humble. We packed both bands into a Dodge van, Mopar engine. We had just rebuilt the engine. And I don't even think it was an Econoline or anything like that. It was just a regular Dodge van. And I think it was even like a 74, something like that, with a rebuilt engine. And we drove from, you know, basically DC straight to San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
Straight to San Francisco, and then we went or Napa Valley, actually. Napa Valley. It took it was like 2 days and a few hours.
Huh.
And it was pretty much straight drive, like, was like 8 of us.
Yeah.
8 of us in a van. We barely knew those guys. We just seen them at shows. But, you know, you really get to know somebody.
Yeah, I bet, yeah.
When you go across, and that was just, it was definitely an experience.
Yeah. And did you guys you had a good time, though?
Oh, yeah. It was unbelievable. I mean, you know, the first tour, you know, your first time you're actually leaving the area and comfort zone.
Yeah. How old are you at this time?
81, let's see. It was 20.
Okay.
Exactly 20 years old.
Yeah.
Right on the button of, you know, 3 years out of high school.
Yeah.
And, you know, Pete set up the tour.
Yeah.
And, you know, so we pretty much he had met a guy who had a place out in Napa Valley.
Yeah.
To, I guess, pen paling, what they did back then.
Yeah.
You know, back and forth. And this guy was also interested in helping out bands. And he knew, I guess, what was the guy? Tim Yohannan?
Oh, yeah, Maximum Rock and Roll.
Of Maximum Rock and Roll. And, and you know, that's when everybody was communicating through snail mail.
Yeah.
And, you know, say Pete and Tim had set up, you know, and I guess also John Stabb had a lot to do with it, unbeknownst to me at the time, because I was just piggyback on whatever Pete was doing. Pete was the mastermind behind it.
Yeah.
And so, when we went out there, we went to Napa, pretty much set up a sleeping environment. Just met this guy from California. First time leaving your area, you're driving right out, meeting total California. Hey, what's up, dude?
Right.
Totally rad,
Yeah.
Super, just total different language and everything.
Oh, I know.
And just the shock, the whole, it was during, if I remember right, it wasn't during the peak of summer, but it was still summertime, so it was hot, grueling.
Right.
We get there, and then we do interviews, we do a few shows. And I think altogether, it was only like 10, 15 shows.
Right.
Altogether, like 4, and it was like 2 on Broadway. And then GIs had more shows because I think John Stabb had been talking to Henry of Black Flag, and they did a couple of shows of Black Flag.
Oh, wow.
I ended up meeting my wife at the time, a woman who turned out to be my wife at one of the Black Flag shows.
Oh, wow.
So the whole experience was just like eye-opening.
Yeah.
With brand, it was weird too because the guy Steve, I forget his last name. I'm having a brain fart. And I just talked to him not too long ago, 2 years ago. Still in contact with the guy. He owned like a venue. It was in Napa Valley. He just starting a winery.
Okay.
Yeah, his modest, home, but he invited us in his home. It was like a studio garage apartment. And, he's got like 8 guys. Right. Who were like, we had like, we weren't, back then you weren't, we had a cooler, I think, but we had like peanut butter and jelly and bologna and, everybody, people that had money were like, nobody was like sharing because we didn't know how to really share at that point. Yeah. Everybody it was the first, but then, by the end of the tour, everybody, I think we ended up doing like 15 shows, a few shows in Cali. Yeah. And we walked our way back from California, hitting, Reno, I guess. And I remember going to like, Nevada, then going to, I guess, Texas and doing a few shows there. Yeah. It was very sparse. Ended up in Tennessee and doing some shows here in Memphis, things like that. But it was really we learned a lot about each other, which, shared a lot of, just stories. Like, it's weird because when you're driving that long, people start to tell stories and they open up about their lives and you start to, Yeah. And we didn't really know each other at first. Those guys, even though I haven't seen the guys from GIs at the time, in fact, I just saw on Facebook Rob Moss. Oh, yeah. And he was, I was just like, whoa. And he's like another guy from the GIs who was one of the original GIs guys. But he wasn't on that tour. It was John, Tom Lyle, Mark Abelstar on drums. Oh yeah. I'm drawing a blank on the bass player, but he ended up showing me because he was a great bass player. He played a walking bass line, one of the jazz bass lines, like boom, 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 boom. And I never knew how to play anything like that because And he actually, before he left on tour, because he was only there for 2 weeks. Yeah. And we were actually on tour, I think, for like 2 months. Right. And, coming back. And he actually, in that 2 weeks' time, he showed me like actually note by note, fret by fret, how to do a walking bass line to this day. And like now I do it in my sleep and I'm thinking.
And when you guys got back, is that when you started recording Still Screaming?
If I remember, I think we had already recorded Still Screaming.
Okay.
And we're waiting for everything, and Ian and all those guys did the pressing and everything. We're doing the mixing and pressing, I think. And when we got back, I'm pretty sure when we got back, we had all, we did some, we had to, rush around and get pictures and get the artwork together. And
right.
And I'm pretty sure that's what I think we had already recorded before we left.
Yeah.
And then coming back, which then we came back, they had to do the mixing and put the artwork together. And,
right.
And I had a little to do with that, but not much. I mean, right. I was just looking at it and being in awe.
Right.
Like,
yeah, what was that like to have like your own album the first time you had that in your hand?
So proud. I mean, it was weird. It's not like I thought it was going to be played on the radio or anything.
Right.
But it wasn't like I wasn't hoping that was happening. At the same time, it's like sometimes I would, unbeknownst, I wouldn't like admit it to anybody. But I would have, I would sit there and look at my album and think it's like God, I'm going to be, not that I'm going to be famous, but this is a record that's going to be here for, forever. That's what I was, and this, it's weird. It's like, I think we only have like 500 copies or something.
Yeah.
And that was like, but it was like my biggest achievement at that point. And still to this day, I still, because some people might call it history or whatever, but you don't really realize how, I mean, I look at it now, it's like you said, it's 40 years later.
Yeah.
When it's weird because, if you go ask for, fill out any sort of application for an apartment or anything, they say, what's your occupation? I still like hesitate, Right. I don't really I write musician, but I always go like, yeah, I mean, and it's still sort of unreal to me, because I've had other jobs, but that's the only job I'm really proud of.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've done just about everything, but being a musician is.
That's left the biggest mark on people too. I'm sure with.
Or artiste, I mean.
Yeah, and the lyrics on that record are. I mean, it's sad that it's still relevant today. Like songs like "Fight" and "Solidarity" and all that kind of stuff is.
Well, pretty much, it's sort of sad. It's like I was telling Pete the other day. I was like, dude, I really love because I listened to that record and I'm really embarrassed. Although it's probably like everybody always hails that as like our best record.
Right.
As far as like me playing, it's like I'm like embarrassed of how out of rhythm it is and how full of how fast we're playing and how sloppy it is. You know what I mean? So I was saying, Pete, I was like, I'd love to go back and do that album again.
Yeah.
With the knowledge we have today and actually talk. Because most people talk about those songs like Solidarity and Fight American Justice. But the ones that hold out to me are the ones that are even weirder. It's like, Your War's Killer.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Which is very relevant,
Yeah.
And more, more songs like that are more relevant to me, I think, you know.
Right.
And Bedlam, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Bedlam.
New song.
I mean, really, I don't have any of my records, obviously.
Yeah.
Because I just moved up here and I've never been one for material things, really.
Right.
Like I should have the original albums, but I guess, but if you look at that, it's like, it's pretty impressive. The album is just like 32 songs.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And they're pretty deep. None of them are like, you know, I think they're great for like a bunch of kids out of, you know, Bailey's Crossroads, Virginia.
Yeah.
Collaborating. You know, no musical training, none of us.
Yeah. It's crazy.
You know, we don't know how to read music. We just all play from ear and passion and feeling.
Yeah.
We got together and composed these songs. Actually put a lot of love and thought. Like the lyric, like you said, Pete, but he wrote most of the lyrics on that whole album.
Yeah.
You know, I wrote a few. And we had friends collaborate. You know, people were, and that's what started to happen, which was really amazing. Because, you know, when I look back on it, you know, it was other people who were playing. We had other friends that were playing music in different genres, playing the metal.
Yeah.
Some playing heavy metal, some playing straight rock. I had a friend, I won't even mention his name, but he used to say, like, you guys might make it in punk, but I'm going to have a hit in every genre. I'm going to be like Elvis. I mean, that was his, you know, and that's the way he would talk to us.
Right.
And he'd be like, you guys, he said, punk will be dead. And, you know, and, you know, and I must admit, I think everybody who listened to punk and was in, nobody thought it was going to be 40 years later.
Yeah.
People would be,
yeah, I know.
We'd still be hanging on to either memories and like glorious memories or fond memories still. But I mean, like it wasn't 3 years ago. I remember just the last show I went to go see, other than like going, I usually just go to, you know, when we're playing, but I went to go see the Damned.
Yep.
I got right, and I went right in the pit, you know.
Nice.
Yeah, you know. They're playing, you know, Machine Gun Etiquette. There goes, you know, like playing Therapy. And I went, boom.
That's gonna.
And I'm like, oh, I'm 50. You know, at the time I was 58 years old. And then I realized it like probably like 4 minutes into it. I'm like, oh God, I'm not 20 years old anymore. And I'm like out of breath.
Yeah.
And there's some young 20-year-old kid that obviously knew who I was, but I didn't know who he was. But he goes, "Oh man, great!" It's like, and unbeknownst to him, I was like gasping for air, and he, you know, glad he was there and latched on to him like, you know, he was a floating log in the ocean, and I held on to that kid like, and he pulled me around and got me out of that pit, and I was so glad. But that's the way it is, you know. It's like the music hits you and you do things, you know.
Yeah, I know.
But you never, you know.
Yeah, if I go to a show
and
now,
I
and that
meet
starts
those
happening.
guys too.
What's that? You got to meet them, the Damned?
Yeah, I got to meet them, and they're like, you know, it's weird because I'm going, dude, I love you guys, and they're going, yo, you're in Scream, oh man, I love you guys, and it's like, oh, so we're back to stroking each other's dicks, basically, you know, while we love each other's bands. So It's pretty. In fact, like it was weird because the last European tour, the Scream went on.
Yeah.
But I never got to. I met Rat Scavy years ago at 930 Club.
Yeah.
And we're like, and so fast forward, I was like, met Rat Scabies at 930 Club probably in 1983. We opened up for him.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm downstairs with Kent, and Kent is a heavy cigarette smoker.
Yeah.
And he loved the Damned too. And he saw it, and he saw him there, and he loved him, but he didn't know what to say. Kent's really shy. And the only thing he could figure out to say was like, hey, can I bum a cigarette off you?
Right.
Right? And Rat gave you like, piss off, mate. Like, and pissed Ken off.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, that day, I mean, for a long time he was probably, but then, you know, now it's one of his war stories. But then fast forward to 2000, Steve did a European tour. The last one was we actually went across. It was like 2000, I think, 14.
Yeah.
And we're in Austria. We're in Austria.
Mm-hmm.
And Linz, we're doing a show there, and they have this sort of like a youth hostel or whatever, and they have different buildings. And we played in the main building, and every different building they have another bar on the ground.
Right.
And it was after the show, and we're hanging out after hours. Everybody else was going to sleep. I'm at this bar drinking with the bartender.
Right.
And then these 3 other patrons come in, and long story short, it turns out one of the guys turns out to be Rat Scabies.
Right.
And we sit up and we're drinking through the night, and I'm telling him who I am, and he doesn't believe who I am.
Right.
And I know who he is.
Right.
I've seen pictures, but he doesn't. It's not. I guess I'm not as famous or whatever. So but he knows who I am just from stories about me.
Right.
So it's really, and he ends up meeting Pete like 2 years ago. Re-meeting Pete again. Him and Pete, and they start to talk, and Pete goes, "Did my bass player meet you one time?" And Lindsay goes, "Yeah, I met some black bloke, and he said he's your bass player, but I didn't really believe him. I guess he was in that." I said, "You know, fancy that." Just weirdness for the small world. But you just never realize it, you know, how like music sustains
through the
people's
years.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. I saw you get a screenplay in LA maybe in 2010 or 2011, I think. But that brought back a lot of just hearing you guys live again was like hearing you, you know, when I saw you in 84 or whatever. And
Oh, really? Great.
yeah. When you guys added Robert Lee Davidson, how did you guys hook up with him?
Oh, that's kind of Pete and Franz have a sister named Sabrina.
Okay.
And she was like really in the metal, like I said, like, and it was heavy competition fighting to play at clubs in the DC area.
Right.
Yeah, it was like Wrathchild, all sorts of like metal bands were playing all through. And so she hung out in the metal crowd.
Right.
And she was dating Robert Lee. We call him Harley.
Yeah.
Harley is with Harley
Right.
for R. Lee.
Right.
Davidson
Yeah.
came out being, and plus his last name was Davidson, so
right.
people just started calling him Harley. And so she was dating him, and he was in a band called Tyrant.
Okay.
And a metal band, and they were going through some changes, and I think their drummer had just left, went out to L.A., tried to make it some glam band, so he was free and available. And I'd always wanted, I'm a guitar player.
Yeah.
We originally wanted to be, just 2 guitar bands.
Right.
And because we were into like all sorts of stuff, Allman Brothers and jazz and crazy stuff too. But we couldn't find a bass player, so I ended up being a bass player.
Right.
So then we had the opportunity to find a lot of the stuff that we were playing. It was so blistering and sort of different, so it was really hard to find any guitar player that was comparable. They didn't want to just to fit in and not slow us down at all. And Harley just happened to do that. His probably his weakest point was playing reggae, but everything else he could hang with.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys toured with the Subhumans when he joined the band?
Yeah, we toured with the Subhumans, and somebody else joined here and there. A few different. I'm trying to remember. I think another Discord band did play a couple of shows with us when we were on the East Coast. I'm trying to remember. Yeah. But that's about the time. I know that's when we went back out to Cali again.
Right. Yeah. How was it traveling with those guys? I mean, a lot of similar politics, and it seemed like a good mix because those guys also kind of mixed it up and they were pretty interesting. They weren't just sort of a straight ahead hardcore band. They had some cool songs and they could play well.
Yeah, but the thing, I think at that point where everybody, the popularity thing was it made it a lot easier. It was easy. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's easier to find sleeping accommodations. It's easier, when money didn't get really so tight because we had merch.
Right.
We always had merch, and people. The name was, that was like 4 years late, 3, 4. That was like, I think, what was that? So that was 84, 85?
Yeah, 85, I think.
Yeah, 85, so that's 81. 4 years later,
yeah.
Got a little more. We've been touring. That was probably our third U.S. tour, the first one with Harley.
Yeah, okay.
So, and we ended up going back to, doing the same California. We had a small little family, so to speak, in California.
Yeah.
We hooked up with the guys from Blast.
Oh, yeah.
But there was another, they were in another band. I'm having a brain fart.
Yeah.
Again, for the name of the band they were in before.
Right.
But we met those guys, like Cliff and Steve, and they were just great guys. And
yeah.
They were like, Santa Cruz was like a home away from home.
Right.
And we had the guy in Napa Valley, Steve.
Oh, nice. Yeah, the wine. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so it was much easier for those guys are like really, especially like, Subhuman. The GIs were a little, because they're American, they're sort of, they want things a certain way.
Right.
And because they were sort of like, they're middle class folks, so they were used to a certain way of life. So
right.
But they roughed it out really well, a lot better than I expected. And I'm sure, even because, Pete and those guys, they were middle class, but they also came from me.
Right.
I got, but who knows? Everybody's got their own little, luggage to carry into every relationship. But what was great about the Subhumans is those guys are really, they're used to, toughing it out. They're real, they didn't want to hold like a rock star treatment.
Right.
Yeah. They didn't want, they weren't expecting anything but, they just wanted beer and food.
Yeah.
And a place to rest their head after they gave all they, played their hour and a half set. They just wanted,
Right.
And to be able to, and spit their politics and not get judged too heavy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then you guys, you tour Europe too, and you record Banging the Drum out there.
Yeah, I mean, God, he's like, when we did the Banging the Drum, that's one. Yeah, see, I think that was like recorded some of Banging the Drum was recorded on our second European tour.
Yeah.
At Southern Studios. And again, that was like really cool because we had the experience with the guys from Subhumans,
right?
And Citizen Fish at first, right? What came from?
Subhumans first, and then Citizen Fish is the newer one.
And then Citizen Fish,
yeah.
And then I think we're doing stuff with Citizen Fish that time.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, and another Conflict.
Oh yeah.
And it's another Another band, I can't remember. I'm having a brain. And like the first European tour, that's when we met up with like Dick and those guys. And if I remember right, I might have the lineage all screwed up. But I remember doing like we did. We ended up doing Stonehenge and we played all over the place, man. We played with The Stupid, Shrapnel, all these great band, Conflict, great hardcore bands.
Right.
And even, I can't remember, this one band, but it was weird. They were sort of like a goth, psychedelic, hardcore band. They were really, I forget the name of them now. They were so hilarious.
Yeah. Huh. Wasn't Rudimentary Peni, was it? Was it that band?
Pardon?
Rudimentary Peni, that band?
No.
Okay.
I can't see how to pick that.
Right.
But, so that was the second one. And the third one, like when we were recording Banging the Drum, it was a lot of crazy things. Because we recorded, and that's when like a lot of the places we were playing, and more so in the EU at the time was, we're like in Germany and France and Amsterdam and Italy, we were playing squats.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, it was always, but they were always, organized very well. Although they were squats, they had great PA systems. And, sometimes the electrical system, you know what I mean? The way the electrical pots and everything was sort of put together because the electricians were like people who lived at the squat.
Right.
But the PAs were always decent. You always had a decent PA. And, and we rented equipment. And that was the first thing, like, when we went on these tours, we had like, we only could bring our guitars,
Yeah.
And, and the amps and all the vocals, everything's different,
Right.
So, and the first tour was basic, we're basically like renting the bare minimum half decks. I remember I was playing through a guitar cabinet.
Right.
I was playing through a Marshall. And, Franz was playing through a Marshall, and we rented a drum set. But I mean, and then in London, in England, in the UK, it was always hit or miss.
Right.
We had a couple of great shows, but we played a lot of like, pubs.
Yeah. And
the thing is there, you're supposed to be out in England. They want you out there by 11 o'clock.
Right.
And then you're looking for something to do. So it was always like, unless we were playing a full-on squat.
Right.
And then we could go all night, and then we'd run out of beer.
Yeah, of course.
The squats were, the squats in England were actually squats with people on the dole.
Yeah.
And definitely the government wasn't like backing it so much. But when you went to Europe, they were being backed by the government more.
Yeah. Right.
Socialist countries, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't really know. And for me, it was like, I was this kid from, West Virginia. It was just, and it was pretty much, it seemed like almost seamless to me for Pete to set up everything in such a way that, he did most of the work,
Yeah.
I was pretty much a bass player who was sightseeing. I had more time on my hands than anything else.
Right.
Yeah. And so the experience of going to a new country and having endless hours, where, you're on tour for like 2 months, but you only have like, in those 2 months, in the 24-hour time, you only have really 3 hours of real work you have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, when that's like a half an hour unloading, half an hour sitting up, hour maybe playing, and then breaking down into, and that, then the rest of the time you don't know what, you got to entertain yourself.
Right. But that's
great.
That's amazing because, you're talking about sitting in your room, staring at your record and that you first, the Still Screaming when it first came out and saying, you're going to go somewhere and now you're in Europe and going to Stonehenge and getting to travel and see all this stuff. So that must have felt pretty awesome,
Exactly. I went to here I am at fucking, when we went to Rome and sitting there looking at, Sixtine Chapel, looking at, looking at Louis da Vinci, looking at Da Vinci paintings, looking at, the cathedral, looking at just, here we are, what? Notre Dame, everything, just everything. Being in Paris, looking at fucking, the Eiffel Tower, being in Pisa, looking at, you're just going, wow, what the hell? I'm sitting there. One thing I do remember is like on the tour, the second tour, was freaking how, it was so hot.
Yeah.
And we had so much time. When we go to these tourist places, and we're obvious, we're like a sore thumb. We're like kids yelling at each other, running all over the place. Nobody's running. We're the only ones running.
Right.
Barely got our clothes on, So it's like, obviously, people will come. You're Americans, and go, yeah. And they're always really engaging, always want to take us out to dinner. Or, come check out my villa.
Right.
Yeah, we met so many people. It's like, we're still in contact with a lot of people, and it's really, really just lifelong, friendships. Thank God for technology, because I'm a terrible, writer.
Mm-hmm.
Write letters only when I'm in jail.
And then I'm thinking back to you had this guy telling you guys that, punk rock's going to be dead. And meanwhile, you're able to, go all over the world because you play punk rock.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's weird too, because that same guy now is I'm still friends with him, and he's a great songwriter, and he still writes songs, but he's never been fortunate enough to record.
Yeah.
And I think it's real sad, because I wish that he could have experienced that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot, but but not every. It just shows you how competitive. I mean, and still at this day, I sit here, and and I'm an artist, I'm a musician, and I guess in a sense I'm professional, but I have more of an amateur, mentality, I guess,
Right.
The love of music is the reason why I'm playing. It's not, maybe at one time my aspirations were to make, I guess to make my mark or make music or whatever, but I think now it's just become more just like breathing,
Yeah.
like something you got to do.
Yeah.
But it's really sad, because I know, a friend of mine is one of the greatest guitarists I've ever played with.
Yeah.
And I've ever seen play. Where I could see what they're doing. And literally, I've seen a lot of musicians.
Yeah.
And he's never, he's never been, really recorded.
Yeah.
But now, because of technology with home studios, he's recorded his own stuff, and he's putting the stuff out on his own.
Right.
But, it's a shame, because even though he's a talent, and his music is great, I don't think he'll get half the exposure that I've gotten being in Scream.
Right.
And that's just because of Ian and Jeff. Ian McKay and Jeff Nelson.
Yeah.
Or had enough presence of mind to archive the stuff, but that's all it's not the greatest recordings. You know what I mean?
Right.
They didn't spend years and years on till this recording come out. If they did, it's only because of money wise. It wasn't because of any like sort of sort of ego thing or any sort of or any sort of thing. They wanted to put out as much as possible. They only put out as they could afford it, and they archived stuff. And they, people started to like it, and then they started to adore it. And now they're an icon in a sense, American, music history. In fact, I took a class.
Okay.
When I lived in Little Rock, Arkansas for a while, I took a class of music history, and sure enough, at the end of the book, this chord is is in the book, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm in class, and I'm sitting there, thinking, wow, my record company in my studies
book,
here, here I'm in college learning, and this, ULR, University of Little Rock, Arkansas, and I'm learning about something I actually was a part of, and I'm, I still am a part of.
Yeah.
It's rather surreal, and you realize how blessed you are.
Yeah, the band is maintained throughout all these years, off and on, and when you listen to the recordings, it's another thing that kind of almost reminds me of those live James Brown records where they're like where he interacts with the band members. There's a lot of that I've noticed on Scream recordings where you guys are talking, and they leave that on the take on the recording. So there's a lot of the stuff you guys record live in the studio.
Oh yeah, well, I mean we try. I mean we try a lot of the stuff on the first record. Is a lot of isolated stuff. We're like totally different rooms, and that's probably why a lot of it's real pegged. Right. And as people started to get bigger, a lot of that had to do just because of the size of inner ear at the time. It was in this basement. Right. And compartmentalized all different rooms. It was this rec room downstairs. But then as technology got better and rooms got bigger, and now like the last stuff we did was in 606. That's Dave Grohl's studio. So we're in huge open up, where we can see each other the whole time. Our amps are in the other room, and we're wearing headphones. And it doesn't have the live feel, which I'm more into like that. Just feel, just get great mics and record the fucking shit. You know what I mean? That's what I would. But I think they want to isolate. I can dig it. They should have some. But it comes off good. I mean, I don't know if you've heard.
Yeah, I love that. I love that record.
The 606 one?
Complete control.
Sound One Dummies?
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. I mean, the newest, and we got supposed to have, like, I'm not supposed to tell anybody. We're hoping to get some stuff recorded during the pandemic. We got, like, 2 albums worth of material.
Nice.
And what's great is, like, we're going to be, like the first record was pretty much, collaborations left and right. Yeah. First. And second record, which is This Side Up. Yeah. Pretty much Franz took a lead on a lot of, it's collaboration, but Franz took a lead of writing a lot of the songs, and I pretty much stepped back. And then, and the same thing with banging the drum. And but as more and more, then Franz became more in the forefront of the songwriting, most of the songs, and Pete did most of the lyrics. Right. But then with this new one, we're going to be doing a lot more collaborating, I think.
Yeah, so when you get back together with those guys, when you guys get in a room together, is it the same as, when you got in the room together in the 80s and you practice 4 times a week?
Yeah, it's crazy, too, because, it's like, it's exactly the same, except for it's a lot more talking and a lot less playing.
Right.
Where where you had to actually belt it out, and you had to play every single thing and explain everything just flows so much smoother.
Right.
As far as like being able, because we all come from, we've all been branching out, doing stuff aside from Scream, and we've learned how to like talk to each other better. The hardest part is just always, your time.
Yeah.
We just don't have much time.
Everyone getting together.
So many things we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, they fly in. Pete and Franz will fly in, and they only have so much time because they got to get back to where they are, and so we don't get really time to talk about family or what we're really doing. We're just straight to business, and that just makes it. It's just not as you don't have as much time. But it's still the same camaraderie when we sit around.
Yeah, that
and it's crazy because like we actually had to stop renting like rehearsal spaces.
Yeah.
Because when we break down, when we stop, we want to talk. And usually if you rent a rehearsal space, when we go to LA and stuff, it's always hectic because you got to be in and out because there's so many bands.
Right.
But when we do it on the East Coast, we get a lot more lenient, people.
Right.
But you still don't get enough time. That's the only thing that's missing.
Yeah.
We used to live together. Now we don't even know.
Yeah.
Now we just pull in for like it's weird too because if we have a tour, like we have a month tour.
Yeah.
We'll meet 2 days before we go to leave out.
Yeah.
And we practice for 2 days, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then we go out, and then we have to relearn. Because you're doing everything on the fly. And then, everything we're using is rented equipment. So it's really, so you have to like really, and everybody's on pins and needles because we don't really get enough time.
Yeah.
And we don't get privacy. So it's really, we're perfectionists and you don't really get time to work things out fully.
Yeah.
And we got to work things, separately, and then we come together and we go, oh, well, I thought you wanted to do this. No, I didn't want you. So, we play by ear, and we don't, even though we know the notes.
Right.
We sometimes just make minor mistakes, and then we got to and then we realize that only when we see each other, oh, I thought you did. Oh, no. You're missing this one note. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So it's always interesting.
Yeah.
And then we change things so much, and that's what's going on now. It's like we change things. We get so many ideas.
Yeah.
And that's and then we and you actually have a little more time now. Where before we didn't have any time. We didn't.
Right.
And people respect your opinion. Where before they were like, "Shut up and take it."
Yeah, I know. And you guys have such a wealth of like types of sounds that you've gone through the years. So there's a lot of room there, which a lot of bands don't have that. They're kind of pigeonholed into we're a metal band or a hardcore band, and you guys were just a rock band, really.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it probably harmed us.
Yeah. I
was talking to Mary. I was like, it's a lot of bands. I'm not gonna say any names. I just go like, wow, these guys are huge. How do they get so huge? They're not really that fantastic, and they're
right.
And I've seen them live, and they're a good band and everything, but they have no real depth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there'll be certain bands but then I just realized they're just smart. It's because they don't go too far off the beaten path of their music.
Right.
From the time they started.
Yeah.
Till now, they're pretty much making the same. And Scream has a tendency of doing every album. I think if you listen to our albums, a little different.
Yeah.
That's the same band as the first now.
Yeah.
They don't even sound. Yeah. You listen to them one at a time.
Yeah.
You go like, what? Even the production,
Oh yeah, like Fumble, that record. I love that record. There's a lot of real heavy. It's just a really loud record. But if you told someone, you know, that the like Caffeine Dream is the same band as you know, Piece of Our Time. They say, what, really?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
cool that you have that much room to stretch out.
Yeah, because it's weird, because when you don't, like, I have a tendency, like, sometimes I don't listen to stream stuff. It might be like years, other than like when we're going to play or something, But then, well, I'm not like listening to, but sometimes I'll just put on a song and sort of take myself out of the equation, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, stop judging how you're playing bass.
Yeah.
Stop judging. Can't. He should have done a drum roll there.
Right.
Stop judging what Pete's doing. Stop judging what Fran's doing. Just listen to it. Like, damn, you know what? It's not too bad of a band.
Yeah.
Like yeah. I mean, it might. Sometimes it's okay to say attaboy to yourself.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, it's definitely. I mean, it's been times when I go like, damn, I was explaining to somebody. It's been, it's been so many times where you have to like motivate yourself.
Yeah.
Especially through the years, it's like never. To this day, I've never heard. I don't think I've ever heard Scream played on the radio or any sort of like.
Yeah.
But people told me,
Right.
and I've had like people record it coming on the radios. They somehow they knew it was going to come on or whatever. And they go, I caught this. Or they were just recording it back in the day.
Right.
And I was like, damn, I also heard it. It's like, it's weird that you're waiting for like you're waiting for some perfect time to hear your song or whatever, but then you realize because it's you, it's almost like, when you first hear your voice on a recording.
Yeah.
When you're first talking to your first recording machine.
Yeah.
And you hear your voice, you go like, that's not what I sound like, is it? Does I sound like that? And it's sort of like that when I hear, like, if I like, because it has happened when I'm at like a nightclub or something. They got a jukebox.
Yeah.
And they got some punk stuff. And then all of a sudden, boom, there's one of my,
right.
There's a Scream song playing while I'm playing a game of pool or drinking a beer.
Yeah.
And that's just, you go like, whoa. What the?
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, 90% of the time, I'm sure it's because somebody recognizes me or whatever.
Right.
But it's okay if I dream just like they didn't recognize me. They just playing. It just strokes my ego and makes me want to play guitar a little bit more.
Yeah. So to nowadays, you did a solo record, Book of Enoch in E minor.
Correct.
And you record that with friends, different musicians.
No, that's just me.
Oh, it is. Oh, you did everything on that. Okay.
All the little me. Well, it's just me on bass and guitar.
Okay.
I couldn't find a drum set, so and the guy who's the engineer on it, a guy named Phil Schaefer, not the Phil Schaefer, but my friend, Phil Schaefer. He programmed. He knows how to program the drums on Bandcamp, and so what I would do is beat out the drum beat on the table.
Oh, okay.
And he would mimic it to the best of his ability.
Nice.
He did a pretty good job because that's all programmed. Some of it sounds like it's a live drum.
Right.
I've had people, that's the real drummer, and I'm like, nah, they just got great sounding, drums now. So yeah.
And have you? Well, obviously not last year because nobody was, but you were playing live again, just sort of solo stuff around where you live.
No, I was doing some solo stuff like just by myself, like at one like nightclub. But I was basically doing those songs with the band, I pulled together a band called Fallout Shelter.
Yep.
With members from a couple of DC bands, one being Kent Stacks, the drummer Scream, and bass player from Black Market Baby, Mike Dolphy.
Okay.
He was playing actually guitar in Fallout Shelter.
Yeah.
And I was playing guitar and singing, and Mike was playing guitar and singing. And we hooked up with this other guy's name is Greg Mazel.
Yeah.
And he was in a sort of a college band back in D.C. around the same time in the 80s.
Yeah.
Called Yesterday and Today, and they changed their name to Vigil.
Okay.
And they were like, they had this huge hit in the college circuit called Whistle in the Yard, but they're totally different style of music. So
yeah,
but he was a great bass player. So he played bass, and we actually had 3 guitars in that band. We got a friend of his named Sean Cromwell, and he played guitar also.
Yeah.
So it was a really unique sound of just a big wall of sound. But I was doing that with Scream, of course, we're doing that, but we did Fallout Shelter too.
Yeah.
And I've been affiliated with like other bands, and also with I'm doing this band called Rise Defy with a friend of mine named Dave Stone. He writes all the material.
Yeah. What kind of stuff is that?
And Tommy Mosley. What kind of stuff is that? It's sort of like, I would say it's like early Discord stuff.
Yeah.
And like a hint of
garagey.
Yeah, garage. A hint of Wire or Fugazi stuff. It's just really, but also just a really good. Dave Stone is a good songwriter, a real great songwriter. He really takes a little bit off of like the Clash sort of like Joe Strummer style writing.
Yeah. Nice.
You know, sort of pop-ish, but not straight down the pipe pop.
Right.
You know. And I'm also in this other band called Tommy Models.
Yeah.
Which is like the guitar player from the original HR band, the original Human Rights Band.
Oh, wow.
Guy named Mark Riffle.
Yeah.
He was in a band called Body Count, a DC band called Body Count. It was like a ska punk band during the early 80s.
Yeah.
And but he's a real talented songwriter. And that's sort of like, I don't know, it's sort of a combination between a garage and a glam band. Vocalist is like, and the lead vocalist is like, got the best set of pipes I've heard in a long time. It sort of reminds me of the singer, doesn't sound like the singer from Blood, Sweat, and Tears, but he's got that unique, clear voice.
Yeah.
You know, tenor like that.
Right. Nice.
Where you can just hear everything he's saying and just, you know.
Right.
And he can he enunciates everything. Not tired of dying, don't really care. Yeah. It's just real. And the way Mark writes a lot of, you know, it's just really, you know, sort of, I would say almost Broadway-ish.
Yeah.
In a way, in a sense, the way he writes, you know, he just comes from a perspective where he just comes from a perspective of, you know, very optimistic and just delightful, really. It's just kind of weird. He writes love songs. It's like he's a rock guy, but he writes, you know, positive love songs, and you go like, it's just unique, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm just glad to be a part of like stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
Coming from a background like, because everybody just knows me as a hardcore punk bass player,
right,
but
right.
You know, I'm just really just an artist. I just love all different types of music. I've been in reggae bands and punk bands and cover bands now. And the only thing I haven't really been is a swing band and jazz band.
I think you missed the boat on the. Remember they had that revival of that a few years back. That swing revival,
Yeah, Kent Stacks was in this band with no, you mean boom 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 boom. It was in the swing band. It was this guy named Daryl Davis who used to sit in sometimes for Chuck Berry.
Oh wow, nice.
And they would do some swing, where they're doing the Cyclops where people were dancing, throwing each other over the hips.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome, man.
Nice. And you were going to tour last year?
What, Scream?
Yeah.
You mean Scream? I was going to tour myself. I was going to try to do a solo tour, but that pandemic fell through.
Yeah.
And I was going to go on tour before Scream, but then we were hoping that Scream was supposed to go in August.
Right.
And we had, we were going to try to, we had stuff set up for May and June here and around down the East Coast.
And tell me about this project that you were going to tour with.
Well, it was just an idea to play just me and, first it was just me. I was thinking of, because I was having I just released my solo album and, that was out and I was, and I just came off a relationship and I was ended a relationship and I was figuring out what could I do? And I was like, man, Pete called and said, we're setting up a tour going to start in August. And I was like, and this was sometime around September still.
Right.
So I had to come around, so I was like, oh man, I should have stood up a tour. And Mary and I were talking about doing that. So we started to set up little venues.
Right.
It was just going to be me playing my solo stuff by myself.
Right.
And just me, electric guitar, an amp, straight in, no pedal, just little reverb. But then this guy named from lead singer from Leeway's band called Leeway, Eddie Sutton.
Yeah. Eddie Sutton, yeah.
I saw that he was, feeling fidgety around the same time, and he was looking to start. He wanted to embark upon he wanted to open a new chapter, I guess.
Yeah.
In his career, and so I reached out to him and said, "Here's the idea I have. I wanted to go out and do a solo thing." And he was sort of expressing. He said, I always wanted to be a crooner, so to speak.
Yeah.
So we were going to go around and do my album. He was going to sing. I do some backup singing. I do some lead, but we were also going to try to intertwine some, contemporary songs that you'd never think that, too hardcore or heavy metal guys would be doing, like, Otis Redding, Sam Cooke, stuff like that.
He's got a great voice, Eddie.
Yeah. So that's what we were going to do, and we were, but then the pandemic, and we were just about to get together here last 2 weeks ago, but then he's had some complications. To be able to and then he was diagnosed with cancer. So 2020 sucked, but 2021 seems like it's trying to
suck a little too. Yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I know he's had some.
Pardon?
I know he's had some troubles, and he's been trying to turn his life around the last few years. So it was sad to hear that this week.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's such a sweet guy that I think he just he definitely my prayers will go out to him, and he's a fighter, so but just fucking, I've lost quite a few friends this year.
Yeah.
In the last year from cancer.
Yeah.
And still a lot of friends still fighting. So.
Yeah. I know. As we get older, we start to see all these people start to fall off. It's
you're losing more and more people.
Yeah.
It's part, I have this saying that getting old ain't for pussies.
Yeah, it's true, man. Definitely. Yeah. Anyway, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me tonight. This was pretty cool, man.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
Yeah.
No problem, Chris.
Yeah. All right. Well,
and thanks for even asking me to do this. So.
Yeah. Your story's great, and this, like you said, just how far the music's taken you through your life. It's pretty cool that you were able to do all this stuff just from playing music with your friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, you have a good evening, sir. And
all right, you too, Christian.
Thanks.
God bless.
You too. Thanks, man.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.